Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. It was a normal Friday night, and I was sitting alone in my office, reviewing a list of candidates for a new position. This position is an opening for a regional director for our company, a chemical company specializing in environmentally friendly soil management products. As a regional director, my job is always busy. Our products are mainly supplied to farmers for managing fertilizers and moisture control, all in an effort to keep the food supply sustainable. We pride ourselves on providing environmentally friendly solutions in an industry that doesn't always prioritize the environment. At this point, two of my office staff are about to leave their jobs, both due to their spouses' job transfers. This means they will have to hand in their resignations in the next few months, so we will have to accelerate the pace of recruitment. Our sales team spans 8 Midwestern states, and we exceeded our goals this year, which is a major milestone for us. While this was going on, Ruby, my administrative assistant, poked her head in and gave me the news I'd been waiting for. Oliver, all 8 candidates have confirmed their interviews for Monday. I'm leaving work now. When she finished, she gently waved goodbye. Every Thursday, I travel to a different state to lead a sales meeting, which usually takes half a day. By Friday night, I'll be on my way home. My wife Elizabeth takes advantage of these nights to party with her friends, even though we've paid a lot of babysitting fees over the years for it. These trips gave me the opportunity to meet face-to-face with sales reps to help them improve their performance and solve problems. This investment has been worthwhile because we have not had a single resignation in the last 8 years, which is almost unheard of in our industry. I just happened to be rushing back to the office, trying to get the last few jobs done before I went home. The company has tried to convince me to delegate these sales trips to others, but I cherish these times. Between Elizabeth, the wife who always knows everything, and our 3 children, those quiet moments on the road became rare opportunities for reflection. Plus, saving the company money is important to me, and these trips save the cost of hiring a sales manager. Our oldest daughter, Sophia, is graduating and has a full scholarship to prepare for college, which has given us a great deal of financial relief. The youngest daughter, Emma, is 16 and preparing for her driver's license. As a family, we're doing well. Elizabeth and I have been married for 20 years, and she works in the district attorney's office as an administrative assistant. The prosecutor had recently accepted a high-paying job with the federal government, and although he and I were about the same age, he had never had a family. There were always rumors, but I never believed them. For the past 15 years, my parents have babysat our children the second weekend of every month, giving Elizabeth and I time to reconnect. This arrangement may have saved our marriage when we needed it most. This chapter is coming to a close with Sophia's upcoming internship in a Washington senator's office, but it has really helped us over the years. Not too long ago, my father decided to buy DNA test kits for our 3 children, and with my permission, we sent the samples out. Sophia thought it would be interesting to keep the results confidential until they were received, which could take 5 to 6 months. This weekend, Elizabeth has planned a trip for us to Memphis to see a concert at the Olymp Theater, returning on Sunday. She always found ways to add special memories to our time together. Elizabeth and I met in our last year of college, but it wasn't exactly a story of romantic chance encounters. At the time, I was a vendor at my school's soccer games, selling snacks to the spectators. Elizabeth's father is on the medical team for the soccer team, so she always has free tickets. The day she and her date got into an argument over something trivial escalated, and when she pushed her date away, he tripped me and I flew down the concrete steps along with my snack tray. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed with a bandage on my head. The doctor told me I had 25 stitches in my forehead due to the deep cut. Elizabeth visited me every day for a week while I was in a coma from internal injuries, guilt-ridden. As I began to regain consciousness, I saw what I thought was an angelic figure standing next to me, and after a moment I realized it was Elizabeth. Next to her stood Linda, my girlfriend at the time. I remember feeling confused and, to be honest, a little disappointed to see Linda there. I woke and slept in and out of a coma, and when I finally came to my senses, Linda was gone, and Elizabeth was by my side the whole time. After that, our relationship slowly grew, although we never made it official. 3 months later, we were married. I'll never forget the way she looked as she walked down the auditorium. 1.73 meters tall, long blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and that figure that keeps people coming back for more. Toward our 5th anniversary, things took a turn for the worse. We went through a tough time and for a while even considered separating. But somehow we persevered. One day, after leaving a well-known restaurant called Charlie's Bar and Grill, which is known for tossing bread rolls indoors, we had a heavy conversation. Although the food was mediocre, the restaurant reminded Elizabeth of her mother's cooking, so we made a point of stopping on the way home. Elizabeth brought up a topic that completely baffled me. She started talking about extramarital affairs, suggesting that maybe I should consider a lover. She goes on to say that marriage norms are changing, and that this may actually help us understand each other better. To be honest, I was completely stunned. Her advice made me feel uncomfortable and came across as selfish and manipulative, as if she was giving me license to hurt people just for our benefit. I couldn't hold back any longer and asked, "Why do you want me to cheat? Did I do something to make you want this marriage to end?" A long silence fell over the car. Elizabeth was always responsive, but this time she didn't say a word. After a few minutes, I turned the music back on, but it always felt like it wasn't that simple. About an hour later, we were still on the road and 40 miles from home when she turned off the music again and apologized. "Oliver, I'm sorry. I think I've been reading too many of those ridiculous romance novels lately, and I don't know what I was thinking." Then she turned the music back on as if everything was fine. But the thing is, our kids and I know she hates those books. Those were her mother's guilty pleasures, but Elizabeth had always considered those books vulgar and superficial. She can't stand those books, so her explanation doesn't make any sense at all. As we were nearing home, I realized there was one thing I had never seriously questioned: her Thursday night party with her friends. On those rare Thursdays when I'm home, she'll cancel the party to stay with me, which seems pretty harmless. But now, after that strange conversation, I'm starting to wonder if there's more going on. Is she going to the bar to meet her friends? Was she involved in some suspicious activity? As we pulled into the driveway, I was determined to find out. That night, as we settled in, I took the time to talk to my parents for a while. They mentioned that they wanted to talk to me privately the next day, and their words revealed their concern for Elizabeth and our youngest daughter, Emma. Although I didn't quite understand what they meant, I agreed to meet them the next day at 3 p.m. after the interview. I told Elizabeth the first was going to my parents' house and might be late for dinner, and she didn't seem to mind. When my parents came into my office, after a brief exchange of pleasantries, my father said bluntly, "Oliver, I really regret giving my grandchildren that ancestry DNA test. We received a match, and there is a grandmother on Emma's paternal side who has been searching for her son and his offspring." With that, he handed me an Ancestry.com form with a woman's name and phone number. My heart sank hard. I could tell by the look on my father's face that he already understood what this meant. "Dad, I don't think this is some kind of misunderstanding," I said, taking a deep breath. "Let's figure out what this is all about." I picked up the office phone and dialed the number on the form. To keep a record, I turned on the speakerphone and started recording. After a few rings, a woman's voice came on the other end of the line. "Hello, this is Oliver Spencer. I'm looking for Ms. Sylvia Watson regarding the DNA match results on Ancestry.com. I explained. "I am Sylvia." The other person replied gently, "May I help you?" I paused briefly, then said, "This may be a bit complicated, but I just learned that my youngest daughter, Emma, is your granddaughter. Are you talking about Emma Spencer?" There was an unmistakable curiosity in her tone. "Yes," I confirmed. "Then maybe you know my son," Sylvia continued. "I had to put him up for adoption when I was 15. If you tell me his name, I might recognize it," I replied. "He was adopted by a family with the last name Harrison and named William," Sylvia said. And the moment she told me the truth, I felt the world spinning. My heart plummeted to the bottom, and both my parents and I recognized the name immediately. Her words were like a hammer blow that shattered the peace in my life completely. "He's is doing well?" I try to keep my composure. "He's now the district attorney for Butler County and my wife's boss." "So," Sylvia said softly, "he's my only child. I'm battling stage 4 lung cancer now, and I'm afraid my days are numbered. Would it be possible for Emma to come and see me before I pass away? I will cover all expenses. I just want to see her and leave her my legacy." "Considering the current situation," I replied, "let my parents coordinate this." They will arrange for her to visit you this weekend. But I know in my heart that I can't let Emma go alone. Is there anything else I need to prepare? Please provide a notarized statement to my attorney for the DNA test, Sylvia said. He will need to verify Emma's identity given the size of the inheritance. No problem, I assured her. I'll transfer the call to my father now so he can arrange the specifics. Walking out of my office, I handed the recorder to Ruby, my administrative assistant. Please transcribe and notarize my conversation and the recording of the phone call. It's important for the legal process that follows. Do you need me to prepare the authorization for the DNA test now? Ruby asked keenly, clearly understanding the gravity of the situation. Yes, please help me prepare, I said, but keep it a secret from the public for now. I need some time to investigate something. Then I turned to Mark, my assistant. I need a personal favor from you and Sarah. My tone indicated that this was no small matter. Sarah's scheduling will be over soon. I'm sending a message to get her over here, Mark responded immediately, clearly sensing the urgency of the situation. It was at this point that Ruby broke the news to me that George Thompson, the chief assistant district attorney in the district attorney's office, had just tendered his resignation in preparation for moving into private practice. This news caught my attention because I know George has been critical of some of William Harrison's practices. When Sarah heard the news, she specifically asked me to pass on her greetings, as it was George who mentored her when she interned at the DA's office back in the day. When Mark and Sarah arrived, we began to discuss our options. I came up with a plan for Mark to use my company car for sales trips while Sarah drove Mark's car pretending to do cross-training. This arrangement would give me time on Thursday night to verify my suspicions. Sarah totally understood my situation, and she offered to contact some private investigators to help gather evidence. A meeting with George cleared things up. As a former chief assistant district attorney, he knows William inside and out. Truth be told, Oliver, back when Elizabeth came to work in the DA's office, there were people who noticed the unusual interactions between her and William. But in the government sector, no one wants to tell their bosses what to do in their private lives. His words brought me back to the fact that Elizabeth worked with William during a time when I began traveling frequently after my promotion. If they really kept up the affair every Thursday, then the deception had been going on for 15 years. I couldn't help but feel a wave of nausea at the thought, and those expensive gifts William had given Elizabeth seemed especially jarring now. George suggested that I hire a professional private investigator to follow up on the investigation. You need hard evidence. I know some professional and reliable investigators who know how to collect evidence within the limits of the law. More importantly, George suggested a legal strategy. When we gather enough evidence, we can sue William to recover Emma's support from birth. Under state law, that could cost him quite a bit. However, to avoid any allegations of manipulation, it would be best for you to temporarily transfer custody of Emma to your parents until the court process is complete. When I offered to pay the attorney's fees in advance, George politely declined. Paying now would alert Elizabeth. It's not too late to wait until the legal process has officially begun. When I left, I had a deep feeling that George was not only helping me win a legal battle, but also helping me get justice for being cheated all these years. Back at the office, I began to organize all the information I had gained in the last few hours. Elizabeth's suggestion that I find a lover seems particularly jarring now, and was clearly meant to excuse her own future actions. And those Thursday night dates that we've always thought of as job duties may actually be masking a lurid truth that's been going on for 15 years. I look at the picture of Emma as a child on the table and my heart pounds. But I knew I had to stay calm for the sake of the kids. The first step was to find out exactly what Elizabeth was doing every Thursday night. And although I had a vague guess at the answer, I needed hard evidence. It's not just about our marriage, it's about Emma's future. I took a deep breath and started working on my Thursday stalking plan. I felt a sense of loneliness and betrayal that I had never felt before on what was destined to be a long afternoon. But at the same time, I felt the support of my friends. Mark, Sarah, and George helped me know that I was not alone in this impending storm. My only concern is for the kids, especially Emma, and wondering how she will take the shock when she learns the truth. On Thursday night, I began my stalking as planned. The private investigator has installed a GPS locator in Elizabeth's car, and I can clearly see her movements. Sure enough, After work, her car was parked in the parking lot of Charlie's Bar and Grill. William's car is already parked there. I kept a safe distance and watched them spend almost 2 hours in the restaurant. They leave separately as if they don't know each other, but I notice William handing Elizabeth a small note. I chose to follow William's car, and as expected, 20 minutes later Elizabeth's car appeared near William's home in the suburbs. Taking cover, I pulled out my camera and started recording. Elizabeth's skillful pulling of her keys from her bag to open the door, William's subsequent arrival, and their intimate embrace at the door were all captured on clear film. It was a moment that felt like my heart was being torn to pieces, but I knew that this evidence would be crucial to the legal process that would follow. It was almost midnight when I got home. Sophia, the oldest daughter, is still awake and she always waits for me to come back. Seeing my tired look, she handed me a cup of hot tea. "Dad, Mom said she's going to spend the night at Jessica's house tonight, saying she's preparing for Jessica's wedding." I smiled bitterly, a lie she had been using for 16 years. "Sophia," I whispered, "sit down, there's something I need to tell you." I pulled out my tablet and played the video footage I had taken tonight. Sophia looked at the screen and her face grew pale. This can't be," she murmured. "They? What are they doing?" "Your mom's been in a relationship with William for 16 years, I said as calmly as I could. "And there's something more serious going on." I pulled out the results of the DNA test. Emma's real father is William. Sophia was too shocked to speak, tears welling up in her eyes. We embraced each other and wept as father and daughter dwelled on this painful truth. The next morning, while we were still in the kitchen drinking coffee, Elizabeth called. Sophia pressed the speakerphone. "Oliver, we need to talk." Her tone was urgent. "I know you followed us last night." "There's nothing to talk about, Elizabeth," I said calmly. "All the evidence has been given to George Thompson. He is my lawyer now. You can't do this." Her voice began to shake. "Think of the children." "It's for the sake of the children that I have to do this," I said. "And by the way, the DNA test results have confirmed who Emma's real father is. It's time for your games to end." Just then Elliot and Emma walked into the kitchen. They apparently heard the last part of the conversation. Emma's face turned pale while Elliot glared angrily at the phone. I hung up quickly. "Daddy, what does this mean?" Emma asked, trembling. I was about to reply when a breaking news item suddenly aired on the kitchen TV. Butler County District Attorney William Harrison and his administrative assistant Elizabeth Spencer had been accused of having an inappropriate relationship, and both would be investigated. News footage was shown of surveillance footage of them in the office, showing their overly intimate interactions. "It's not true, is it?" Emma's voice had taken on a sobbing tone. "Tell me it's not true." I took her in my arms and felt her tremble. "I'm sorry, Emma," I whispered. "I only just learned the truth. But remember, no matter what happens, you'll always be my daughter." Elliot walked over and took his sister's hand. "Emma, it's not your fault. We're still family." As the news continued to play, the reporter began to reveal details of the relationship that had been going on for more than a decade. Even more shocking, they played taped clips of William and Elizabeth laughing at me during a private conversation. Elizabeth says, "It's amazing that Oliver, that idiot, hasn't realized anything after all these years." This was followed by the sound of two men laughing uncontrollably. "Enough." Sophia angrily turned off the TV, but the damage was done. Emma broke down and cried while Elliot's fists clenched white. That's when my cell phone rang and it was my parents. They've seen the news and are coming over immediately. I told them that what they needed most right now was for Emma to meet her biological grandmother, Sylvia, and that maybe that would help her understand who she was and gain some solace. I gathered the children to sit down and showed them Sylvia's letter. "Emma," I said softly, "your grandmother would like to see you. She is ill and her days are numbered. We've arranged for you to go with your grandparents to see her this weekend, okay?" Emma looked up at me with teary eyes. "You'll always be my daddy, right?" "Always," I said firmly. "Nothing can change that." Sophia offered to help Emma pack, while Elliot offered to go and prepare some of their favorite breakfasts. I felt a twinge of comfort watching the kids pull together so well. We remain a strong family despite such a hard blow. Later that afternoon, George called and told me he had all the legal documents ready. The temporary transfer of custody papers are ready, he said, and the child support recovery action against William is in progress. Don't worry, we'll make them pay their fair share. Watching the children support each other and face this crisis together, I realized that while Elizabeth's betrayal had hurt us tremendously, it had also brought us closer together. We'll get through this together, even if it's a long road ahead. That night, I couldn't sleep for a long time. 16 years of lies have finally been exposed, but the truth comes at such a heavy price. My biggest concern was for Emma, who had lost her mother all at once and learned that her real father was such a man. But I secretly vowed that no matter what happened, I would continue to be a good father and protect my children. After all, true fatherhood is never based on blood. Saturday started early in the morning with a wave of family and friends at my house. Elizabeth's parents, her two brothers, her sister, and their spouses all came to visit us, each bringing a dish they knew how to cook. My siblings also traveled from out of town to lend their support. From morning until 4 p.m., the house was always filled with concerned voices and warmth and coziness. The storm caught us off guard but unexpectedly demonstrated the strength of family bonds. Every visiting loved one could not understand how Elizabeth could keep up this lie for 16 years. They all looked both angry and heartbroken when they saw the evidence circulating on social media, especially the comments that Elizabeth and William had made mocking me. Sometime in the relative quiet of the afternoon, Elizabeth's father, James, pulled me into the backyard. We stood on the deck as the setting sun's rays draped the entire yard in a golden color. He patted me on the shoulder and said, "Son, you don't have to keep all your emotions inside. I'll tell the others to leave you alone for now." He stayed by my side until I gradually calmed down. Before he left, he told me he intended to change his will. "I'm going to redistribute Elizabeth's share of the estate to the children. The woman who betrayed her family is no longer our daughter." There was deep disappointment and pain in his voice. Just then, a call came in from my father. He told me that Emma's meeting with Sylvia Watson went well. Sylvia seems to have a natural knack for calming Emma down and helping her to face and accept this harsh reality. The legal process is proceeding in tandem, and attorneys have completed the necessary DNA sample collection. But things are far more complicated than we think. In a private conversation with his lawyer, the father learns that William's real father is serving a life sentence and that Emma's presence has disrupted certain inheritance arrangements. I assured my father that George had taken sound legal measures to protect our rights. The mother shared her conversation with Sylvia over the phone. Sylvia is grateful for the way we've handled this, and she plans to leave all of her estate in a trust that I will administer until Emma comes of age at 25. "This is the first time I've seen Sylvia genuinely smile since Emma came here," the mother said. "That's when Mark and Sarah arrived with my car." Sarah mentions that the police commissioner is working closely with George, and it seems like a good opportunity to hit William's political career. Mark, on the other hand, told me that his colleagues at the company were secretly supportive, and that many of them had known about it as early as last week. However, the most surprising scene was the one Elizabeth and William encountered at Charlie's Bar and Grill. When they last dined there, they found the restaurant unusually cold. When inquired as to the reason, the waiter said bluntly, "A guest has expressed an unwillingness to share a room with you." The letter I wrote to Elizabeth has gone viral on local media sites, and people are offended by what they are doing. Even more ironic was the day Elizabeth ran into her parents at the restaurant. When she attempted to step forward and strike up a conversation, James didn't even look up, just said coldly, "Mr. Harrison, I suggest you take your mistress and leave so we can dine in peace." The words were like a hammer blow that shattered Elizabeth's last vestiges of decency, and she left the restaurant in tears. After seeing off the last of my visitors, I stood at the window and stared at the darkening sky. These days, I have witnessed the ugliest side of human nature, but I have also felt the warmest care. The unconditional support of my family and friends made me realize that even in the darkest moments of life, we are not alone. I sent Emma a text telling her how much we all miss her and love her. Right now, my main concern is the kids, especially Emma. We have a long way to go together when she comes back, but I'm sure with the support and love of so many people, we'll get through this. Elizabeth and William eventually moved to St. Louis. Desperate to get out of this scandal, The local government allows William to start his new federal government job early. But it's not the good life they thought they'd have. They're renting a tiny two-bedroom apartment and facing possible bankruptcy, thanks to a civil fraud lawsuit filed by George. Divorces are finalized quickly under state law. Elizabeth is required to pay child support while the children are still in school, and 50% of their living expenses if they choose to live in the school. The children consistently refuse to answer her phone calls, and her relatives on her side of the family distance themselves from her. She had to realize, in the hardest way possible, that when one's behavior exceeds the bottom line of tolerance for others, people eventually choose to leave for good. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in the car driven by Emma, and we're traveling to Wichita, Kansas. We have just received word that Emma's grandmother, Sylvia, has passed away, and we are traveling on a private jet arranged by the administrator of her estate. Over this time, Emma had developed a strong bond with her grandmother through frequent phone calls, so this news was especially sad for her. Sophia and Elliot have shown amazing maturity and support during this difficult time. Not only did they support each other, but they started encouraging me to start dating again. But I still have a soft spot in my heart for this, and one profound betrayal is enough to make one cautious. On the way to the airport, I remembered an incident that happened the other day. Emma asked me to set up a meeting with William, Elizabeth, their attorney, and George. The idea was inspired by her grandmother Sylvia. On that sunny Tuesday, we all gathered in the conference room, where Emma stood and in an unusually firm tone of voice explained to her own father, William, the purpose for which she had called the meeting. She handed William a sealed envelope containing information about his biological father's location in prison and his request for William to visit. Then she calmly recounted her life and how she had just learned that Grandma Sylvia had left her over $1 million in a trust fund that I was to manage on her behalf until she was 25. If things hadn't fallen apart, the money would have been yours, Emma said, looking William straight in the eye. But now they're going to help kids like me, kids who are hurting because of their parents' selfish decisions. She warned William and Elizabeth that if they did not consider mediation, the legal consequences could escalate further. I felt both proud and heartbroken watching her face it all so bravely. After Sylvia's funeral, we looked at the specifics of the will. The size of Emma's inheritance far exceeded our expectations. While sorting through Sylvia's house, Emma decides to sell most of her belongings, keeping only a few pieces of jewelry and family photos that have special meaning to her. The experience made a profound difference to all of us. Sophia now appreciates the genuine relationships between her family even more. Elliot has become more mature and stable, and Emma, despite such a blow, shows extraordinary strength. As for Elizabeth, word from St. Louis is that she's working as an administrative assistant for a small company at a third of her old salary. William has kept his job with the federal government, but their lives are far from what they originally envisioned. Monthly alimony payments and an upcoming civil settlement have left them in a tight financial situation. Sometimes I wonder if it would have been different if Elizabeth had just confessed everything. But there are no ifs in life. We just have to accept the reality and move on. What is most comforting to me is that despite such a storm, our family has instead become closer. Emma now often jokes that the experience gave her the best father in the world and a loving family, which is far more precious than any legacy. Whenever I hear her say that, I am overwhelmed. Sometimes the greatest irony of life is that a conspiracy that tries to destroy us instead makes us stronger. And today, as we drove to the airport, I looked at Emma, who was driving carefully beside me, and remembered all that had happened in the past few months with a sense of gratitude. Yes, we lost something, but we gained more. Our family may no longer be intact, but the bond between us is more genuine and deeper than ever. A final glance at his cell phone showed a text message from Elizabeth, still asking for forgiveness and a chance to reconnect. But this time, I chose to just delete it. Some betrayals run too deep and some wounds take time to heal. And now, more than ever, we need to move on and get on with our lives. The sky was extraordinarily clear, and the sunlight poured through the windows of the car. This may be what life teaches us. Even in the darkest moments, if we hold on, the sun will eventually shine back in. And sometimes it's the very people who try to hurt us that lead us to true happiness instead. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit Hit subscribe and never miss an episode.